What is up, Planeswalkers Theoric 6, back with some more Magic the Gathering Arena, and finally, we are able to finish the guild mechanics for Guild of Ravnica with the Selesnya Convoke mechanic. Now, I, in the past, have gone through what I've taken out for what and why, but I'm not going to do that this time. This time, I'm only going to talk about the deck as it is, with essentially little reference to the previous iteration, the budget version. And the reason for this is so much of the power lies in the rares and mythics that I felt that the deck was just so far away from the budget build that there wasn't too much of a reason talking about the upgrades, because essentially you just remove the entirety of the deck minus essentially Conclave Tribunal, and then you add in like an entirely new deck. So I'm just going to talk about why I'm running the individual cards and give you a little bit of the interesting strategy. So we're only running a single one drop in the deck, I should say, is 2 Legion's Landing. This card is fine to get started. Typically, though, you'll be playing Flower on turn 1. We are running 22 lands, and the reason we're able to do this is because of the utility that Flower allows us to have. In that, early game, we can just use it to get a land and guarantee our land drops, and late game, it's not a dead card because we are able to buff our probably incredibly wide team and go for the win. Legion's Landing does a very similar utility thing where we have a 1/1. It does something on turn 1. However, it's very easy to be able to attack with 3 or more creatures and get a value generation effect where we no longer have to necessarily use a card to add to the board. We're able to just sit back against a not terribly aggressive deck, or a deck that isn't going to punish us for sitting back, and just make creatures every turn. Especially once you get into top deck mode, if the game comes to that, you're going to be able to continually generate some sort of value and eventually overtake your opponent and win the game. We're running 3 Thorn Lieutenants. I've seen some lists with 4. However, I decided to do a 3, 3, and 4 split on my 2 drops. I really, as I've said in previous videos that included Thorn Lieutenant, I really like just the efficiency of this body. It is annoying for your opponent to deal with because if they target it with anything, a spell or ability, you're going to get a 1/1 green creature out of it, and you have the utility of late game pumping that card. If your opponent decides to try and deal damage to it or affect its life via its toughness somehow, and you have the ability to pump it, you can essentially force your opponent into giving you a 1/1 for 6 mana. Now, obviously that's not very strong, but it is something that you do get to keep in mind. This card just scales very nicely. Emmara, Soul of the Accord, is a strong card in that she does a fine job attacking. After 2 attacks, she does replace herself with some 1/1s that also have lifelink, so she more than replaces herself in that regard. But she just allows us to get some sweet value, some additional value when we use our Convoke spells. Now, of course, we're only running 3 different Convoke spells, but we are running 12 of them total, so you're going to be able to utilize this ability relatively frequently. And because she is just a bear, you're not really going to worry too much about attacking with her, even if you know she's going to die once, because of the fact that you're going to get something out of it. She's functionally a 3/3 for 2, and that's just a very decent value. Then we have Saproling Migration. This was in the budget version because it's a strong effect for what we want to have. And what we want to have is a smattering of bodies that are going to allow us to use our Convoke spells to great efficiency, especially early on in the game. So early, just like the other cards we've talked about so far, this scales very well. Early game, we are getting functionally a bear. We are getting 2/2 worth of stats for 2 mana. And importantly, when we use this modality, we're going to be able to use our Convoke spells as if we didn't cast anything at all. So if you have, for example, a Conclave Tribunal in your hand and 4 mana on the board, you can risk-free pay, well, not necessarily risk-free, your opponent could respond in some way. Well, no, it depends on the situation. But you can pay 2 mana to get 2 more 1/1s and then utilize those bodies as functionally lands to use that Conclave Tribunal still. So this way, in this matter, you are forwarding your board position while being able to remove your opponents. In other decks, you would need to essentially skip advancing your board in order to remove something your opponent has. So it's very nice. And then late game, you can pay 6 mana, kind of a premium, in order to create 4 tokens instead, which is just a nice thing to have. We are running a single Knight of Autumn. This essentially is in the place of that 4th Thorn Lieutenant that I've seen around. I just like the utility of Knight of Autumn. That's pretty much the only reason I'm running it. And I didn't think that we were running too many 3-ofs. We functionally only have History of Benalias in the 3-drop slot. So I figured it was fine to run a Knight of Autumn just as a kind of silver bullet type card. The 4 life is really helpful against the super aggressive decks. Being able to make it a 4/3 is decent against those control decks, and being able to destroy an artifact or enchantment, especially against the black-based decks with their Eldritch Reborns or their disinformation campaigns, can get you out of a tough spot. History of Benalia is just an annoyingly strong card, and that art, of course, by Noah Bradley is just actual perfection. That stained glass effect is lovely. But this card is 3 mana for a total of 4/4 power, which is great by itself, and we get extra night value. If you're able to chain 2 or 3 of these, if you're able to chain 2 of these together, you probably are going to win. If you're able to chain like 3 of them together, you almost certainly have won. Because you're going to be able to just keep putting on so much pressure that your opponent is going to have a tough time dealing with it. It's also a great recovery mechanism. If your opponent wipes your board, which sometimes they will, you're going to be able to like top deck this and have guaranteed 2 bodies over the course of a couple turns that are going to help you get back into the game, I should say. March of the Multitudes is our first Convoke card that we're coming across, and this card is just a great way to end games quickly. If you have 2 of these cards in your hand, you're going to still need green mana because they only make white soldiers, and the Convoke spell has to take into account the color of the creature. But you're going to be able to very quickly just create this insane board state where you have like 30 creatures, and that's not a hard thing to do. You know, if you turn 1 Lieutenant, turn 2, say, Saproling Migration, turn 3, we go into on a History of Benalia, turn 4, right, you can Saproling Migration again, hold up, March of the Multitudes, end of turn, march for some bunch number, attack with your Vigilance guys, and then at the end of your opponent's turn, march again, and then they die. It's just an insane way to pump your board to large proportions, pump them wide, I should say. And, you know, late game, if you do end up flooding somehow with 22 cards or 22 lands in the deck, you're going to be able to just have a big X-Spell. And the fact that it's instant speed just makes this card ridiculous. We're running 2 Shalais. Shalai is a good card in this deck. The reason it's a good card in this deck, even though we're not looking to protect individual creatures, it does help against, first and foremost, Settle the Wreckage. This deck goes incredibly wide, and we're going to be attacking with a ton of creatures at once, so Settle the Wreckage is something that really can eat this deck alive. Having Shalai means that our opponent has to get rid of that card before they can target us with the Settle the Wreckage. That's the most important thing. Additionally, giving us Hexproof means that we're going to potentially get burned slower against these super aggro burn decks, and since a lot of our tokens have lifelink, we're going to be able to hopefully eke our way back into the game before they use some of their burn spells to kill Shalai, and by that point, hopefully, we have stabilized and we are going to be able to take away the game. But more than that, we can just use this ability in the late game. As I said, this deck scales very well. We can use the ability in the late game, stop adding to the board with our cards, and just add to the board with what's already there. You know, we can end a turn, use Shalai's ability, make just a small, even if it's a small army of creatures, larger, over the course of a couple turns. That's just going to be a headache for a large number of decks to deal with. Conclave Tribunal is just a great removal spell. It gets rid of essentially anything we want. Of course, it can be removed, but it's probably going to be removed by other Conclave Tribunals. Maybe it'll get removed by an Ixalan's Binding out of the like Jeskai decks. But being able to answer something and still, like I said earlier, advance your board is something that's very helpful, especially against those control decks. I won a game earlier during my practice rounds against a 5-color Lich's Mastery deck that played a, goodness me, don't even remember what that darn blue enchantment's called. But they played that blue legendary enchantment, and they were going to get Miraric Injector. There we go. They were going to get back a board wipe, and I just made it so they weren't going to be able to get that board wipe. I had a March of the Multitudes. I cast it, and my opponent just lost the game. They were able to take an extra turn and play out their Lich's Mastery and not die for a couple turns, but I was attacking with them for so much damage that they weren't able to keep up. They weren't able to keep feeding cards to their Lich's Mastery, and they ended up just having no permanence left. And I would not have won the game without being able to Conclave Tribunal after I cast a History of Benalia, right? I was able to keep up pressure and remove something very important. So, Venerated Loxodon is a card that essentially just buffs our board. That's pretty much all it does, but it can do it way quicker than turn 5. This thing can come down like on turn 3, right? If you go Legion's Landing, then like Saproling Migration, yeah, then on turn 3, you can buff 3 things and have a 4/4, right? And that's just an incredibly strong line of play. So it's just a nice buff to your creatures. A single Lyra. Now, why am I running Lyra? Lyra's a good card. That's pretty much it. She helps out Shalai, which is nice. But for the most part, it's just a strong body for your opponent to have to deal with. That's pretty much it. And last but not least, we have 2 Tristani Discordant. Discordant by itself gives us a decent power toughness thing. The last ability is kind of tacked on just as like a nod to Commander, I think. But, you know, it's a 1-card army, and that's just very strong. Our mana base is pretty much as expected, you know, 4/4, and then a smattering of the rest. As you can see, we're mostly white, a lot of double white going on the mana cost, so that's why we are more plains than forests. And we're also running a nice Arch of Orazca. Now, you could, if you were running up against really annoying... There we go. Really annoying lands, you could run Field of Ruin instead. If you're running up against a lot of hex-proof creatures, I guess you could run Detection Tower, but I really like the inclusion of Arch, because you're going to be able to have City's Blessing pretty quickly. And with that City's Blessing, you're going to be able to just make your opponent just drown in card advantage if you get to that point where you're both top decking. So I really do like that card, and we're going to go and play Constructed Event. Yeah. Going to play with Selesnya Convoke. Cool. And this is a very strong deck. As you could see, just by how long it took me to get this deck together, how many resources it took. This is not a cheap deck, right? This is an upgraded deck, going up against John's Trip 4. But it'll do you good. It's not currently like the flavor of the month, but it is a strong card. This is actually relatively weak hand because we functionally have 5 lands. That said, we don't need to use Flower to land thin. We just have access to the lands. So I guess I'll keep this. It's kind of a later game hand, but that should be fine. If our opponent is like mono red, well, then it could be awkward. We did get an Emmara, which is very nice. So we can play Emmara out on turn 2. And then on turn 3, we have History. So not terrible. Our opponent might not even be mono red. They might have just played a Mountain on turn 1. And it looks like they're mono red. Steamkin, yep. And they could end up killing, I would have preferred to see that earlier. They could end up killing Emmara, but that is fine. An argument could be made to Legion's Landing there instead. Play the other Temple Garden tapped, then Legion's Landing. It's a smaller target, but I figure, yeah, let's force them to burn that instead of our face. Potentially incorrect, but it's the line I went with, knowing it will likely die. History of Benalia is going to be helpful. Yep, shock me. Yeah, they're just going in on Runaway Steamkin, and Shalai very well could help me stay in this game based on what I said in the DeckTech. You know, at some point, I'm going to be able to just not die. And we're going to be able to chain these Benalias, which is fantastic. So if we get an untapped land that isn't Temple Garden, the next turn we can landing plus Benalia. But even if we don't, we can just Benalia and play this tapped. We're not going to want to... Sure. Wow, 3 shocks in their opening hand and a Runaway Steamkin. That is pretty strong of an opener. We would have absolutely just chumped there. We're definitely the control in this matchup. It's possible that just playing Shalai is correct, but they're not going to get an extra thing that maxes out at 3. So my opponent kind of should have used the abilities already. And they might now be realizing that. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to get Dome for 4. It's very tough. I do want to be able to play Legion's Landing and History to get some life gain here. Sure. Interesting. Yeah. I really don't like the idea of shocking myself. But I'm trying to decide if it's more correct. So I'm going to shock myself, and it very well could be incorrect. But this does give me another blocker. Right? It does potentially save me more than the 2 life that I had to lose. The problem is, opponent has 2 cards. I could get burned. Well, no, I can't get burned from 8 out of 2 cards. Cool, one of those will land. I need them to not have coffee. Coffee, by the way, is Experimental Frenzy. They talk about coffee in the flavor text. I'm pushing to call those decks mono red coffee. They should have, in my opinion, killed the lifelinker. So I kill the 2/2, and then I block, like, this is both 3 damage anyway, Except this at least gains me some life. I take 3, go to 5 plus 1, so I go to 6. And then hopefully I can get a land and play Tristani. It's not a land. So I will just play Shalai. Ooh, I could flower for a land so that next turn I have Tristani. So I can Saproling Migration flower. I think that's actually correct. Oh wait, I didn't play a land, so I can actually just play this and Shalai now. Yeah, I think this is reasonable. I think this is the most reasonable play. And the correct decision is always block the Steamkin, I think. No, either so unfortunately either way, if my opponent has a burn spell, then they can kill Shalai. If I block this, it would get larger. Sure. So now if they attack with the Steamkin, I pretty much have to block here. Oh right. So this is not a May, and I have Hexproof right now, so I pretty much absolutely chump block. My opponent shouldn't attack with the Chain Roller because I can eat that for free. And then next turn I can Tristani Discordant. No real reason for me to get rid of Shalai here. It's just too valuable as a giver of Hexproof. So I lose out on the Benalia final trigger, but I'm the control deck. I don't care in this situation, and now I have some more lifelinkers. My Shalai is large enough to eat this now, so we are in a pretty good spot. It's also harder to burn out Shalai, so yeah, we're in a pretty good spot. Let's see, did my mute button, I think, worked. Cool, cool. Ooh, Venerated Loxodon is real nice. So I can go ahead and do this. And I can Loxodon. So I can keep up enough blockers here by having these. And these are, well, these are the lifelink guys, so I think I actually want to tap these down. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, and 2 of these. Yeah, I think this is fine. It does lower my shields technically for 1 turn, but not really. And it does make it so that my lifelinkers are larger, so I'll be able to gain more life. But at this point, I can just start using Shalai's ability, make my lifelinkers even larger, and that should really be all it wrote. Yep. Fantastic. This is what we like to see. Now let's see how we do against control. Of course, assuming we get to go against control, but it's a very strong deck, very popular. But I think the flavor of the week right now still is Golgari midrange, going against Aprobodigly. I have no idea. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is a fine hand. Since I have Lyra, I think I will flower turn 1. Just plains flower for a plains, I guess. That's interesting. I don't know what that means. I do try to read what my opponent is doing. I'll just get a plains. I guess Merfolk, potentially? Nope, Bant. It's Nexus. It's almost certainly Nexus. So we're gonna have to really put the screws to my opponent. Try and kill him real quick. Luckily, we have double History of Benalia. Sure. Yeah, so I think this is a Turbo Nexus. One at the bottom, sure. So we have to advance our board without like overcommitting. So we're definitely not going to want to cast Lyra until after they use something like Settle the Wreckage or that is not what I expected at all. Okay, I was incredibly wrong. This is not Turbo Fog. Just going to go ahead and play this History of Benalia and pass the turn. No need to just throw one of those creatures away. Next turn, play a Temple Garden tapped, History of Benalia. Following turn, Tristani. Seems decent. Oh, it's Mill? What? Oh, I guess that's the combo? Is that whenever they cast an enchantment, they draw a card, and it would trigger this? Sure. I guess that makes sense. Is it better for me to hold up a march for 5. So it'd have march for 5, and then I can play Tristani. Is that better? I legitimately don't know. I think it is. I'm gonna offer my opponent a trade on the 2/2, and based on what they do there, will help me figure out what I want to do. I don't think they're gonna take the trade. Yeah. Okay. So I think that I want to hold up march for 5. So march for 5 on end step, and then Tristani next turn, and have a huge board. The problem with that, of course, is the potential for Settle the Wreckage. Of course, right now my opponent only has 1 white. They did scry that to the top. And I am going to mill. What, 2 cards? Sure. Let's see what I get rid of. Shalai, that's unfortunate. That's the card we would have drawn. Tristani, sure. They do have another white. So this is looking potentially awful. In that we can get just blown out by a Settle the Wreckage, and I'm almost certain they have one. Yeah, I'm almost certain that they have a Settle the Wreckage here. No, they might just counter this. They counter this is fine. No, yeah. I mean, they were looking at their hand too. Just like scream Settle. So I think what this means is don't attack with everyone. I mean, easy attack here. Don't think I care too much about those. So let's see, 1, 2, 3. So I have 8 left, and I'm fine having, well, like this. Like, I think that's still a fine clock. So I attack like this. Because this is still decent pressure here, right? But I don't lose everything. Yeah, I'll do that. You really don't want to play into Settle the Wreckage too bad. Yeah, yeah. The thing is, do I take 6 basic lands out of my deck? Yeah, it's too good of thinning. I think even though my opponent like is a mill deck, I just think it's incorrect to not thin. Man, the loss of Shalai there was pretty tough. Hopefully we can draw another one. Interesting. Okay, so sure. Fog? Seal away. Interesting. Oh, right, they draw cards. Okay. This is a very interesting deck. I've not seen this. Got rid of my Arch, but I would not have wanted that. Got rid of my other Shalai. Very unfortunate. Let's play this tapped. Man, I really don't want to add any more to the board because I'm almost certain that they have Cleansing Nova, right? Yeah, I really am not comfortable adding to the board that much. Knight of Autumn would be a fine draw here because I could blow up their Psychic Corrosion and kind of stop them for a bit. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to play a Lyra. Lyra can kill my opponent herself over the course of a couple turns. I'm almost certain my opponent has another Seal Away. Those are 2 cards I didn't need. Teferi, interesting. This is a weird build. Interesting. Okay, so I'm pretty much certain that my opponent isn't going to be able to mess with me. Ugh, they could have a freaking Fog though. Yeah, it's pretty certain that they have a Fog, and the reason I'm still playing these lands is for a huge March of the Multitudes. 1, 2. Yeah, so I still have 2 left. Pretty much, no. Shouldn't attack there. Pretty much can do this. My opponent almost certainly has Fog, I think. Was it Root Snare? I kind of want them to trade these. But I don't really want Teferi to be protected if they don't have a Fog, so I guess I'll do it like that. I mean, they're down to 3 cards, right? Like, yeah, cool. So I potentially missed out on some damage there. I'll play Emmara. Emmara doesn't... She's, like, functionally the same as those. I really don't know which one of these to value more. Oh, yeah, they milled our Lyra. That's awkward. Sure. I'd like to draw March of the Multitudes, I guess. Because we have so much mana. And we can do it end of their turn. I think that's reasonable. 26 cards. Teferi again. See if they decide to plus here. Plus, yeah. That kind of tells me they have a seal away. So I'll probably just end up not attacking with Emmara again, I guess. 24. Only 3 cards. Knight of Autumn is nice. Do I Knight of Autumn first? I do Knight of Autumn first so that they don't potentially hit me with a seal away. And I'm fine just like losing Knight of Autumn to some sort of board wipe. But we're going to blow this up. This forces their hand a bit if they wanted to do something. Yeah, okay, so that's good. I get value out of this regardless. I'm really not sure if I should just be attacking all face. I mean, my opponent doesn't have a Psychic Corrosion in play, so I don't really have to worry necessarily about them drawing cards, kind of. I don't know. This one's difficult. I think I'm just going to try to hit their face. They might. I mean, they might have seal away. This gets me. This replaces. This gives me a placement body, and we still have an okay field. Yeah. Well, they're casting something. Cavender's Insight. Okay. They should have cast that in response to my Knight of Autumn. I mean, it's only technically 4 cards milled, but... Yeah, okay, so I technically could have gone for Teferi, and murdered him. But my opponent now is at 2. Which I guess doesn't actually mean anything. Because my opponent could just draw a board wipe. Interesting. Opponent going all the way down to 1. Not really a point in playing Benalia out here. Our board is large enough that our opponent may want to wipe it anyway. Okay, yep, they draw a card. But I'm not under mill pressure right now, so that's nice. I hope that they're not also playing Nexus. It's a very strange build, for sure. I'm sure a bunch of you viewers right now are like, I hate you, Teferi. Theorics win this for us. I kind of am inclined to agree. I don't. A lot of newer players who are just getting into this standard format really dislike Control. This version of Control, and they generalize it to Control overall. But I think mostly it's just Teferi as a problem. I don't think Control in general is. I don't really need to Flourish here. Like, my opponent dies if I attack with, like, anyone. So, I think the correct decision is, like, attack, like, those 2 there, and then attack 1 at their face. I think. This, as I said, replaces itself. Is my opponent gonna fog first? No, okay. So I think this is the correct decision. It keeps us with the board. This like actually replaces herself. Even if they seal away to save Teferi, that's fine. Like they have to find a way to. All right, Chemist is inside. They're looking for something. Do they find the settle? Or it's possible they had the settle and they're just pretending that they're looking for it. Which is in my opinion a fine strat. Ooh, they have they're dead. There's nothing for a single blue or green that saves them. Yeah. Rip. Yep. That can be controlled too. What are we at? We are at 30. I have no idea. I'll play another one. I get so many comments, right? They're like, I really like the long videos, but you know, the analytics, they don't lie. People tend to watch a single game. Just about a single game. QQN. And that's not, it's not a problem. Teach their own. But I never know what the masses want. This is a fine hand. It's not great, but it is fine. Once again, since we have Lyra, we're going to want to flower turn 1 anyway. We're going second, which is unfortunate. Dagraf Ghoul, alright, going against some Zombies, some Zambies, Zamboids. And we're going to go against Plains. As I said, this deck is more white hungry than it is green hungry. We're going to keep that on this side just so we remember that that's what our opponent is seeing. Yeah, this is straight up Zombies, dude. After my own heart. Literally. Well, I guess they're after my own brain. And we'll go ahead and play the Migration here. I'm trying to figure out. Next turn we could march for 2. So I'm trying to decide if I want to block here. Next turn we could march for 2. And the turn after, we could march. So we have 4. Math is hard. We can march for 5. That's not good enough. I'm gonna try and kill this. Even if they blow us out with something, it's still technically a 1-for-1. I'm frankly surprised about that. Cool, sure. Unfortunate that we have not garnered any more support. Do we want to thin? I don't think this game Flourish is going to matter. It could, and if people who are a little bit more versed in this deck are yelling at me, I apologize. But I don't think the Flourish part is going to matter. I would rather thin my deck by a slight percentage. Death Baron, pretty strong. Hopefully I don't... Okay, History of Benalia is fantastic. And we are just going to play the Temple Garden tapped. Next turn... So this is just going to get chumped. Or just going to chump. So that we can get Lyra out. And Lyra is going to be what brings me back in the game. Oh, Liliana is... real unfortunate. They plussed. I'm surprised by that. Can't attack with the 2/2. Yeah. Yeah, I do that because I just want to survive to Lyra. Is Lyra better or is March here better? March for 3. Followed by March for more. I think Lyra's better. Minus X. Our opponent could... So this is not a zombie... If both of these are zombies, then they could play both zombies and kill Lyra. And that would be very bad. I don't like that. I'm still going to go with the line because it requires my opponent to have, like, specifically 2 cheap zombies to do it. And our opponent might not even want to do it. Our opponent's playing blue. I just realized that. What's the point in playing blue in this format? I kind of wish there was a chat in this game, because I'm curious as to what my opponent is playing blue for. Yeah, I mean, that's a good card in zombies. Huh, interesting. Opponent only has 1 zombie in here, so minus 3 isn't very strong. +1, sure. Still didn't get domed. Playing Desecrated Tomb. I'm not a big fan of Desecrated Tomb, for those who are curious. I do have... Yeah, there's no reason to attack. I do have the green-black zombies list, and I don't love Desecrated Tomb. It just requires too much stuff going on. So at this point, not really a reason to attack with my 4-3. Just kind of gets blocked by Skeleton. That said, I am going to attack Liliana here. This notably can't die to cast down because it's a legend. It's very, very good. So this, I mean, this gave me some life. Yes, I'm kind of putting my shields down, but I just don't want Liliana to be able to do dumb stuff. And we do have March. So end of turn, we're almost certainly going to March. March for a ton. And then we have another even larger March. Huh, yeah. Got a Stitcher Supplier? What is top 3? I mean, that is 10. I do agree with you. That doesn't seem smart at all. So this is going to be for 4? And these have lifelink, which is nice. Yeah, it's for 4. So I guess my next March is not going to be as large. Which is unfortunate. But, double block here, and then individual blocks on this. It's just for counters insight. I don't. If the blue splash is just for insight, which is looking like what it is, I don't think I agree. So I'm going to take 6, gain 4, right? And then both of these are going to die, and that's going to die, so that is just fine. Yeah, I functionally took, what, 2? Opponent only really has 2 cards left in hand. And we can, once we kill Liliana, we can just start dumbing my opponent for 5 every turn and not caring too much. We can march at our leisure. Yeah, so we're in an okay spot. Yeah, Legion's Landing. So Legion's Landing is functionally a free card with March of the Multitudes because it gives us a guy for the same amount of mana that it costs. Liliana is pretty much going to die. My opponent might kill Lyra with like a Vraska's Contempt or something, but since this has Vigilance, there's pretty much no reason not to also attack. The only reason I'm doing this is because Lyra could die, and I want this guaranteed dead. Right? My opponent doesn't have enough mana to kill both, I don't think. Yeah. So it was functionally a free attack, and when you're in situations like that, you want to do essentially what is going to be the most beneficial for you at the time. And there was the least like negatives to doing that, and the most positives, I think. So here we can march for 5. We don't need to, but we could. And then once we flip Legion's Landing, we can just keep making a 1/1 every turn, and that's not terrible. Honestly, we don't even need to block or anything here. Yeah, I mean that's fine. Graveyard Marshal doesn't currently have any way to activate on board, but you could. Sure, I'll take 4. I gain more life than I would take, and if I don't need to cast March, I'm not going to. Flourish is hilarious because Flourish kind of means I should have played March last turn. Do I want to attack with all of my creatures? It flips Legion's Landing. I'm not sure. I think it's fine. We can still march for 5, so I think this is fine. Yeah, flip Legion's Landing, so I'm able to march for 5, or 6 if this doesn't die, but I assume it might? No, it doesn't die. Okay, so I can do it for 6. And we're in a decent spot. Life-wise, our opponent can just play that back at the end of the turn. End of turn, we can march for 6. And then Flower Flourish should kill them. If they don't attack us for lethal, yeah, I mean, they have one card. Like, I don't really care. If they don't attack us for lethal, then I don't really need to have a defensive march. This type of deck isn't going to be playing board wipes, most likely. Opponent doesn't have enough mana to get back a Death Baron. This makes tapped zombie tokens. So when you're playing, you got to keep checking things, keep making sure you understand what's happening. That's interesting. Torgar. Sure. So they're going to put me to 10. So, I lost 5 functionally. But I have full information. 2, 4, 6, 9. My opponent cannot kill me. I have literally full information. I cannot die currently. I have no real reason to block. Let me just make sure. 2, 4, 6, 9. 2 mana. I know their hand. I'm fine. No blocks. Because they're down in the crackback. Let me just make sure I understand. Nope, not you. This. Math is hard. 6. And then I can flourish, and my opponent is dead, even if they aren't. I'm going to have a large amount of life. That comes in tapped, I don't care. Oh yeah, they're super dead. It's a good deck. French fried potatoes. Something, sling blade. Hey look, it's a pack. It's a pack, it's a pack, it's a pack. What did we get? Cool, I like that card. Alright, well, I hope you all enjoyed I hope you all enjoyed the totality of the guild mechanics, both the budget and the upgraded. I do plan on doing that with the next 5 guilds coming out in, Ravnica Allegiant or something like that. I'd like to thank Easy Mode, Dizzy Fam, Radberry, Kyoshin, Ox, Daniel, Flowerchild, Chow083, Zaraga, and Madka's Bad for their wonderful support over on Patreon. If you would like to join them supporting the channel, you can find links to that in the description below. I do sincerely hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go and tap that like button, add a subscription to your mana pool, and cast a comment in the comment section down below. And until next time, all will be one.